Welcome, it's Denome, and welcome to this crypto update. Today's update is going to be an interesting one because I have an update from Michael Saylor because MicroStrategy as a stock has been actually added or tagged into this new FUD that is spreading around. And also we have some new information on the October 10th liquidation event that basically started this cascading downtrend that we're currently witnessing. So I'll talk about that. I also have a clip from Michael Saylor addressing the allegations against his company. So I will play that for you guys to keep things neutral. And also, obviously, we will take a look at the price and fundamentals as well in this video. So buckle up and let's get started. First, let me show you guys what actually happened on October 10th. So here we have some new information. So what's causing the market crash? It's not ADL, Binance API issues or liquidity crunch. It's MSCI excluding digital asset treasury companies and other DAT-like companies from the indexes. So before this, I actually did not know what is MSCI. So just for you guys who don't know what is MSCI, it is Morgan Stanley Capital International. And what they do, I don't know if they make money on this or if it's just corruption, I don't know. But what they do is they create these benchmark indexes, and from these indexes, passive investment funds make their investment decisions based on that fact. And how Michael Saylor essentially has built his company with this Bitcoin treasury strategy is that once he gets added into these indexes, then passive money will start flowing into MicroStrategy. And as long as he keeps buying more Bitcoin into the balance sheet, these passive investment funds have to buy his stock, and that will push the price higher, and that will cause essentially an infinite loop of capital flowing into the market. But then on October 10th, we got the announcement from MSCI saying that they will remove digital asset treasury companies from the MSCI's index, which would mean that suddenly these investment funds no longer have to buy or they cannot buy MicroStrategy stock anymore. And that essentially takes the floor from MicroStrategy and all other digital asset treasury companies as well. So anyway, October 10th, this announcement came out as part of the consultation so far. Some market participants, blah, 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 blah. The consultation will remain open until December 31st, and then we will have the final choice. I don't know why this screenshot is actually capped here. But anyway, until December, it will remain open until December 31st. I actually saw another date that said that January 31st they will make their final decision, and then we will know if Michael Saylor's strategy will remain in the indexes or not. So that's essentially what happened there. And what is also interesting with this whole story is that when we take a look at what JP Morgan did during October 10th, is that they massively accumulated the MicroStrategy stock going into that announcement. And I guess they got wind of this new change. And right just hours before the announcement went live, they actually dropped their holdings of MicroStrategy lower. So they sold off 25% of the stock. Now, there was probably some information shared with insiders on this, but overall, as you can see from this chart, I just want to play the devil's advocate and say that they have been buying MicroStrategy before. So I'm not exactly sure that there was massive fraud going on underneath, but maybe on the last day or the day before they just got wind somehow, insiders leaked it to them or something happened, and then they sold a little bit off. If they knew how bad things were, you would think that they would have sold off much more than just 25% and not accumulate so much of MicroStrategy going into that event there. So I guess there's some corruption, but maybe not too much. So I'm just sharing the story as it is. Now let's see how Michael Saylor actually responds to this whole situation
I
here.
just want to ask you about the JP Morgan report. that came out this morning warning that strategy could be excluded from benchmarks like NASDAQ, MSCI, and it could trigger an estimated $2.8 billion in automatic outflows. That's just from the MSCI alone. What's your response to that?
I think it's a bit alarmist. I'm not so sure the numbers are nearly that high. I think actually the numbers would be much smaller. I also think it's already priced into the market by a factor of 10 if you count it. I don't think there's any relationship between the decision making of MSCI and the Nasdaq 100 or the S&P 500 index allocators. The company is an operating company. It's just like insurance companies use capital in order to create financial products, and banks use capital to create financial products. We use capital to create digital credit finance products. It's possible there are people in the world that don't fully appreciate digital credit or digital treasuries. That wouldn't surprise me. We had that challenge with bankers that didn't want to bank Bitcoin. We had that challenge with accountants that were a little bit skeptical of digital assets accounting. The accountants embraced the asset, the bankers embraced the asset, the politicians embraced the asset. We had the challenge with credit rating agencies, and they just embraced the asset. We're starting to get credit ratings. We have the challenge under the Basel Accords, where Basel Accords allocate zero value to Bitcoin, and now they've announced they're going to reconsider that. So I'm not concerned that we have these kind of concerns.
So there you go. Essentially, he's talking in circles and saying that there's nothing really to worry about here, and the market has already priced in this move completely. But what he doesn't really say is the future of MicroStrategy. If it gets taken down off this index, maybe they will not be able to garner as much inflows anymore into the stock and keep the stock price elevated. So that could actually harm the business in the long run. But at the same time, I have to argue that the market has started to price this in, because Bitcoin has fell from $126,000 to $80,000 in almost one single move within a span of a month. So there's a lot of validity to the defense of Michael Saylor, and I don't exactly know how it's going to play out, to be quite honest. I'm just sharing with you guys that this story is ongoing, and essentially by January 31st, we finally have the resolution to this. So this addressing of this issue, for me, it doesn't take away the issue completely. So right now we have another piece of FUD that will float with us for the next couple of months, which is going to be a little bit annoying. But that's the story essentially there. And one last piece to the puzzle in this story is that JP Morgan simultaneously shorted MSTR stock. I'm not sure if they shorted or not. I didn't see evidence of that, but they definitely sold 25% of their holdings. But also now they are recommending MSCI to remove MicroStrategy from indexes or indices. So there's that now, that JP Morgan is playing some dirty tricks in the financial scheme, and as altcoiners, crypto enthusiasts, Bitcoiners, we're essentially in the crossfire between these industries. So that's a play there. It's a little bit annoying that now, because Bitcoin has grown to become an important asset in the world, now big bankers are essentially trying to play us as well. And I expect these kind of plays to actually get worse over time. Some governments may want to actually take down some companies in the future as well. And obviously the insiders, they will try to nail the market moves whenever they do some kind of FUD. So that's essentially the nature of Bitcoin and crypto going forward. Then obviously another piece of news, and I will go back to the fundamentals and technical analysis afterwards. But exclusive USA is set to launch a new phase of Venezuela operations, sources say. So this came out on November 23rd, so essentially yesterday. So they interviewed four US officials for this story, and all of the officials cited anonymity for this matter. So let's see. They say that operations will launch in the coming days. So that means essentially that this week we could see an attack on Venezuela. So that starts to look a little bit likely. I will look at Polymarket soon to see if insiders are betting there, just to show you guys what's going on. But essentially, a senior administration official did not rule out anything regarding Venezuela. And what's funny is that the Pentagon referred questions to the White House and the CIA declined to comment. So there's a massive amounts of secrecy. Everybody's bouncing the ball back to each other. I'm not exactly sure who knows and what information is actually reliable. But like I told you guys in the previous updates, that is actually likely that there's like 90% chance that eventually they're gonna attack. But when we head over to Polymarket and look at the chances, at least today, it seems like there will not be an attack. There's only a 6% chance. And by November 25th, only 14% chance. November 27th, what is interesting is that if the attack would actually go out in coming days, there's only 21% chance in this betting market here. Looking at the graph, seems like this market has actually sold off. So at least now it doesn't seem like insiders are buying this asset here. But what is interesting is when we head over to higher time frames like March 31st, 2026, this has actually started to increase in chances essentially since November 20th. So then it was a 50-50 and now it's a 73% chance that there will be an attack by March 31st, 2026. So whenever they do decide to attack, I expect markets to actually take a tumble on that time. And then once the attack has cleared, as long as USA doesn't get bogged down in the fight, then I believe that asset prices will recover. But this is another piece of FUD that will float with us until it gets resolved. So for these reasons, essentially, I'm not expecting a massive rally in Bitcoin. I think people are still a little bit scared because there's so much uncertainty, maybe corruption, who knows what going on right now. So that's essentially going on there. Now heading over to fundamentals, then I will actually look at the chart here. But since my last update, there's one more company in the Bitcoin treasury company list. So in my previous update, there were 355 entities. Now there is 356. And what is also interesting is when we combine the amount of Bitcoin in treasury companies and ETFs, that amount has actually gone down by 40,000 Bitcoin since my last update. So there has been a institutional sell-off. On Ethereum front, when we take a look at the amount of Ethereum in strategic Ethereum reserve companies, Bitmain actually has continued to acquire more Ethereum. Arbitrum DAO made a sell-off here, but all in all, the amount of Ethereum in reserve companies has increased by about 50,000 Ethereum, which is nice. But on ETF front, there has been a sell-off. So 100,000 Ethereum has been sold off by ETFs. So that's what's going on there. Then heading over to maybe some short-term fundamentals, looking at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, you can see that right now there is no imbalance anymore, at least on the one-day view. When we change it to one-week view, you can see that there's quite a bit of liquidations essentially stretching to about 90k, but all in all, this balance starts to look more even now than it was at the lows of last week, when it was essentially like 15% compared to 85% on the upside. So all in all, there could be volatility either way, to the upside or to the downside, essentially is what I'm getting at. But there seems to be a nice liquidation zone here going to 89k, 90k. So that is a hotspot in this regard. But if we have, like I believe we will have this week, is that we essentially have a boring week. We attempt the lows that could make more sense. People get more bearish, and then the liquidations pile on the short side, and then finally we head to the upside unless there's the attack on Venezuela. So liquidations essentially give us neutral position. Maybe you could be a little bit bullish as well. And then looking at the spot order book depth, what is interesting here, just looking at the sell volume here and the buy volume, there seems to be just overall less interest in buying Bitcoin now at these lows than we had going to this downside here. So as you can see, going into this dump here, we saw a lot of buy action in the order books. All of the Bitcoin got bought up, but now that Bitcoin had time to actually hover and even go to the upside over the weekend, there doesn't seem to be much of uh, spot buy orders piling up. So that is a little bit worrying for me in the early week. So what I kind of expect, if we take a look at the delta on spot order book depth, you can see it has actually turned a little bit negative. So there is more sell pressure from limit orders than buy pressure. Some whales are trying to exit this market. So again, kind of getting my bias that we would get an attempt to go further to the downside rather than a move to the upside immediately. Futures markets almost neutral at the moment. It flipped negative, it flipped positive also, but now it's essentially zero. So futures markets are pretty much neutral on that front. Then here's a new chart that I'm actually using. I combined a couple of things that I saw people sharing on X. So I combined them in this CoinAnk dashboard here. What is interesting, or what I see people talking about on X, is the Coinbase premium. Because what was interesting here, essentially starting from October 30th, is that the institutions really started to sell off Bitcoin, and that's when a Coinbase premium went on the negative side. We had a couple of positive days here, or let's say a couple of positive hours, but overall this has just been negative, as you can see all the way down here. We had one positive hour here over the weekend as well, but after that got cleared, then it went on the negative side as well. So who is trading on Coinbase, and why is the Coinbase premium negative? You have your institutions, mostly US-based institutions, as well as US-based whales are mostly trading on Coinbase. So when you have Coinbase premium on the negative side, then you know that the sell pressure is coming from the United States institutions and whales. So when you see this much of sell pressure, just almost not consistent, non-stop sell pressure, that is typically bad. But at the lows, almost always the Coinbase premium is negative. So keep that in mind, that even though institutions are selling, eventually they will run out of their sell pressure, and then we head to the upside. So the absolute low of the moment is usually marked by the extreme negative. So keep that in mind as well. But interesting point here is that I started this video talking about October 10th. On that day, the delta here, or the Coinbase premium, was actually highly on the positive side. So the institutions really only started to sell here on October 30th or the start of November. Not exactly sure why they chose that date, but that's there. Then we have aggregated order book depth, which I already covered, so I'm not going to talk about on that. And then we have funding rates on exchanges. So here we actually had a nice buy signal, so the funding rates went negative, which signals that people are starting to pile in on shorting Bitcoin rather than longing Bitcoin, or there's so much more buy pressure from the spot markets that the funding rates flipped negative. So all in all, when we see this kind of signal here, it usually is a positive signal. So this is giving me the idea that bottom is probably going to be close somewhere here. So if we head lower here, I actually do not expect 80,600 to be taken down, at least as of now, until we clear out the liquidation imbalance essentially going to about 100k. That's where I kind of expect the price to go in the medium term. Again, unless USA attacks Venezuela, then we could actually head even lower than that in panic. So overall, even though I'm talking a little bit bullish here, this is essentially a president's market, and if he decides to do something, he can influence the price here and push out the narrative together with his banker friends like JP Morgan, and they can manipulate the price where they want to. But what they cannot manipulate is the fact that they are addicted to money printing. So eventually they will turn on the money printers once again, and that will cause inflation, and that is fuel for Bitcoin. So now we essentially know the fundamentals there. We know who is selling. So first, let me give you guys the big bird's eye view here on the price action. And right now, when I take a look at this market, it just reminds me so much of what we saw here in 2020, 2021, when the top was forming. It's almost the same exact price action. If this price point here would equate to here, then we would get the rally roughly to about 100k right about here, maybe by January or something like that, end of December. And from there, if we actually are in a bear market and we don't get bamboozled, then we would plunge a little bit deeper, maybe down to 60k, maybe down to 50k even. So there's always a potential for that if people just decide they don't want to hold Bitcoin anymore. But there's more similarities here than just that. One is that we actually have bullish divergence here on the weekly view. So what we have here is we had lower highs here on the RSI, but higher low. Sorry, we had lower highs here. Sorry, lower lows here on the RSI and higher lows here on the price. And now we had exactly the same thing, a lower low on the RSI, but a higher low on the price action, at least so far. So this is giving us a bullish divergence. So that is starting to look good. And this is the complete opposite what we had before, when we had lower highs and lower highs on the RSI and higher highs and higher highs on the price, which is actually a bearish divergence. So we had a converging bullish divergence and a bearish divergence essentially at the same time. But this actually just gives me the idea that we will have a bounce back to the upside. Doesn't necessarily mean that we overtake the all-time high here, but I just expect a some kind of a bottom to be forming here, and then we had a at least move to the upside. And similarly, we had a similar situation here back in 2020, 2021, when we actually had again the same thing. We had lower low here on the RSI, but we had a higher low here on the price, and that's when we had this relief rally, and then we went to the downside, and then the weekly RSI went below 30, and that was essentially pretty much at the bottom. We still had the FTX collapse later down the line, but that gave us the bullish divergence here, and from there the bull market on Bitcoin started. So if that were to repeat, then we are at this stage of the market right now. So a couple of weeks, we might be forming a bottom at this area, get the relief rally back to the upside, and then next year would be a bear market. So that's essentially what I'm getting at in the longer time frame. In the shorter time frame, the 1 hour RSI is starting to are tagged the oversold territory. So that's where I'm getting the idea that we would actually head to the downside here in the short term. Also, we have this new trend line here, and that is getting some resistance from this current price action. So would make sense to actually head lower here. If we head higher here, doesn't actually mean that we have explosive action. But like I showed you guys earlier, we do have all kinds of liquidation levels above us, stretching to about 100k. And obviously we actually do have quite a bit of liquidations also near the all-time high, but not as much as we have stretching to 100k, because we haven't had any kind of relief rally as of yet. So it's a lot of ifs and buts at the moment in the market. I'm personally thinking that this low will not be taken. I would not be too surprised if we get swept at the lows here, if some bad news hits the market, like the Venezuela situation, and that will be your entry point into the market. But right now, I see some people talking about essentially just saying that wait it out, no reason to actually panic buy into this market, even though we might head to 100k, because the market condition right now is not looking too dandy. So you may want to wait for you to get a better entry here, maybe a double bottom or something like that, and then enter the market. So that's essentially the update I had for you guys for now. But I also have some good news here to share. So my latest video was on the Circle stock price, and since that video, the stock went from $66 to $72.7 where it is currently. It flew all the way to $74 as well. So if you watched my update video on the bullish case on stablecoins and how to invest in stablecoin companies, then you would be quite in a nice situation. So watch that video again. Also, if you want to join on BitGet, there's a $30,000 deposit reward program if you use my affiliate link, and a bunch of other rewards, competitions, and all kinds of things on BitGet as well. But that's the video in its entirety. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you feel like you want to hear more from me, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.